Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku had chosen another love part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story anonymous from AO3. So let's start the video. Love is something expensive for someone like Todoroki Shoto. He learned that through heartbreak, whether it's from his own family or with the person he was in love with. Platonic love can be as deep as romantic love. He loves his classmates, he loves the 𝗔𝗂𝗁𝗵𝐺 squad, and he also loves his best friend, Izuku Midoriya. Then, Shoto went and fell in love with Bakudeku Katsuki. And no, Shoto knows the urge to hold Katsuki's hands is not platonic. The way Shoto wants to embrace Katsuki's frown is clearly romantic, and Shoto loves every interaction they both had. If he could, Shoto would have confessed by now. If he could. But Shoto Todoroki is not an idiot. Maybe people tend to think that once they knew him, maybe they saw him oblivious, and Shoto has to admit that there are some parts of his life where he can be oblivious. But people tend to forget the fact he can be observant. So he knew something had been going on between Izuku and Katsuki since their high school days. At first, their relationship was a bit rocky. But as time goes by, Shoto knows they clearly care about each other. Maybe because he's always the third wheel to whatever has been going on to those two, so Shoto always noticed the look of adoration from Izuku's side. And he always saw the look of devotion from Katsuki's side. So one night in their third year of high school, Shoto asked Izuku about it. What do you mean about me and Kaken, Shoto? His best friend stammered as he nervously glanced down at his tea. Both of them were in the living room, woken up by nightmares from the war, and coincidentally met in the kitchen. It's not uncommon for some of the Class A students to meet each other late at night in the living room or in the kitchen. They already have their own protocols if they ever did so, such as Momo placing some tea in the cabinet or Katsuki and Sadu already baked something earlier that day for the classmate who would pad their way to the kitchen in the middle of the night. Shoto cleared his throat. I mean, what do you want to do about your feelings for Katsuki? And isn't calling Bakudeku his first name something new? Shoto is happy to see how close he has gotten with his classmates this past year to call them by their own first names, especially Katsuki. I don't know what you mean, Izuku answered. It's not the words Shoto expected. Shoto tilted his head. I thought you liked him. No, I don't. His freckled friend nervously laughed. Kaken is my friend, someone I consider more special than anyone, and I don't know what I would do if he was not here anymore, but I don't like him that way, so yeah. Katsuki is someone he considers special, and not knowing what you would do once he's gone isn't that how you think of someone in a romantic light. Instincts tell Shoto this is not one of many incidents where he's clueless about something but more like he's right on the money. So why is Izuku denying his own feelings? I still remember the time Katsuki got kidnapped, Shoto slowly says. You were inconsolable at that time. It's obvious how much you cared for him. There's also the fact you're kinda possessive of him. So don't worry, Izuku, Shoto smiles. You don't have to hide your feelings from me or to Katsuki. I'm sure he would. Wait, no. Izuku suddenly exclaims. Shoto blinks. You got it all wrong. Kaken is really just a friend to me. Now that we became friends, I'm already satisfied with what we have. So you don't like him that way? Izuku's face turns red. Definitely not. It's just, I never felt any butterflies in my stomach or nervous with him, so, Izuku purses his lips. I don't really think I like him that way. The thing is, Shoto was not convinced. But he just nodded and left it that way. He pretended not to see the sigh of relief from his best friend when Shoto dropped the topic. A few months later, before they graduated, Katsuki announced a meeting as Class A but without Izuku. Katsuki told them he wanted Izuku to still become a hero, so he suggested creating a hero suit for Izuku to wear. It was discussed they were going to collect loads of money for this project. Something in Katsuki's eyes made Shoto not want to look away. His ruby eyes turn into burning starlight. Whatever is going on between Katsuki and Izuku, Shoto knows for sure Katsuki can feel it too. One thought comes into his mind. I don't want him to get hurt. Hey! Katsuki sat right in front of Shoto, He propped his elbow and smirked at him. Long time no see. Shoto's mouth suddenly blooms into a smile. Katsuki, I didn't know you'd be here in Fukuoka. I visited my brother. Shoto slurps his coffee shakes. Right, Natsuo does live here, doesn't he? Katsuki's face scrunched at the thought. What about you? What are you doing here? Just finished my DMN mission. I'll go back to Mustafu tomorrow. Do you want to hang out for a while? Sure. Shoto blinks. Really? Katsuki rolled his eyes. It's been a while. Of course, I would like to hang out with you. Did I ever tell you, I really liked it when you started not denying the fact you cared about our friendship? About me? Oh, F off, Katsuki says, but there's a soft smile on his face. They decided to walk around the city, but not before putting on their disguised hoodie and cap. Since the war, they've been famous people. I know a place, Katsuki suddenly says. Let me guess. Shoto blows a breath. We're going to the arcade, right? Huh. How the hell did you? Your competitive nature never died down, Katsuki. You say that as if you were never competitive to begin with, hypocrite. He grins at Katsuki, and Katsuki almost smiles but tries to refrain from the said smile as he glowered at Shoto. Shoto doesn't know why, but it makes him so happy to hang out with Katsuki again as if they are still in high school, when in fact, they are almost going to turn 20 in a few months. Sure, they've been close before the first war. But before the second war began, they also got closed because of the drama around the Todoroki family, and Izuku went missing. The machine made a sound of ding. Shoto frowned as he lost another round in the claw machine while Katsuki cackled. For someone who has a higher ranking than anyone else, you're always on the bottom of the F trenches when it comes to claw machines. At least I'm not being bitter about the fact being at the bottom when it comes to the hero polls, he mutters. You literally, you're next, Katsuki? Katsuki narrows his eyes at him, and Shoto tries to look as innocent as possible. Then, Katsuki clicks his tongue and hovers the claw machine. Shoto watches as Katsuki sticks his tongue out in concentration, his ruby eyes turning into a burning starlight. This is one of the things Shoto knows about Katsuki. Something about him made Shoto not want to look away. The class already knew the fact that both Izuku and Katsuki are charismatic in their own way, but since the day Katsuki announced his plan to make Izuku a hero, something shifted in Shoto's heart. Shoto has to look away, or else he would decipher the feelings he can't take back. He already accepted the fact that nothing would come out of pining someone who is not in love with him. Here. Katsuki pushed a cat teddy on Shoto's teeth. I got it for you. So stop frowning that you dim lost. I'm not frowning. Yes, you are. Did I? Maybe Katsuki saw something in Shoto's face because Katsuki's expression turns amused. You didn't know you were frowning, did you? Shoto is silenced. He's pretty. Sure, if he was really frowning, the reason is entirely different from what Katsuki is thinking. Katsuki chuckles. Never change, Shoto. He tilts his head. I thought you didn't like my idiotic obliviousness. I didn't like it, Katsuki smirks. I love it. Before Shoto could react or say something about that, Katsuki's phone started to ring. He retrieved his phone from his pockets while Shoto looked away from Katsuki. Just right in time, the spiky blonde says, holding out his phone in front of Shoto. It's Izuku. Oh. The bitterness that started to swallow was overwhelmed by the sheer happiness to talk to Izuku again. After all, it's been a while since he and Izuku have had a conversation. Both Katsuki and Shoto decided to go somewhere secluded where fans wouldn't find them. Having a video call is a great idea, in Shoto's opinion, to talk more to his two friends. After that, they happily made conversation like they always did in high school. As they talked, Shoto cast a glance at Katsuki. He's not surprised to see Katsuki being more soft than usual and using a gentle tone only reserved for Izuku. There's the burning starlight again in Katsuki's eyes. When Shoto gets to Natsuo's home, Shoto decides to look up Katsuki's career. He did realize Katsuki has been tired lately, despite how happy the blonde was earlier. He frowns when he sees Katsuki is doing more than Shoto usually does. Katsuki has numerous cases solved under his belt for someone his age, and apparently, he was prone to also do his work at late hours. It's obvious to Shoto why. Because of Izuku's hero suit. The next time Katsuki and Shoto met, he invited Katsuki to go get some lunch but also gave him some snacks afterwards. Then he placed a hefty amount of money for Izuku's suit. The week after, it made Shoto smile to see Katsuki slowing down with his work. Shoto was happy to see his brother healed, even though it's a slow process. The two of them have a lot to work on individually and together as siblings. But some days it can get a bit too strong, especially on this kind of day where both of them have bad days. Touya started lashing out behind the bars, and Shoto's attitude was too cold for anyone to get close to. He's already going through therapy, so why isn't this enough? Shoto thought he's already making his own progress, and yet, what the F happened to you? Shoto snaps out of his trance and looks up to see Katsuki raising his eyebrows to him. This time, Shoto is just behind the prison building where Touya was held. He is currently sitting on the pavement. Shoto is glad no reporters are in sight. He doesn't want to hear any more about the inevitability of being like his father, or he would also lose his mind like his brother. Visiting my other brother, Shoto frowns. What are you doing here? I need to be here to interrogate someone who I caught 2 days ago, Katsuki shrugs. I see. There's a beat of silence. 4 months, the previous class A became busy. But they do try to get together sometimes. It's only luck that Katsuki and Shoto are the two people who got to interact the longest considering the fact they coincidentally teamed up together during work hours. Katsuki suddenly sat next to him with a sigh. There's some awkward shuffle from the blonde, but Shoto is not interested to look as he wraps his arms around his legs like a child. Your brother being and but again? Katsuki questions. Shoto didn't say anything, but his silence is apparently enough for Katsuki. Katsuki blows a breath. He's always in but, don't take his F attitude seriously. Is this your way of comforting people? So what if it F is? It comforts you in the end, doesn't it? You suck at comforting someone. Say you? Shoto frowns. Our classmate told me I'm a comforting person to be around. That's because you're a good listener. I am. Hell yeah, Katsuki grumbles. You don't judge what they F told you. You just sit there like a F puppy and be their shitty therapy dog. I see. Another silence went by. This time it's not awkward or uncomfortable but something more pleasant. Just two friends enjoying each other's company. Katsuki then opens his mouth. But knowing you, Shoto, your brother's shitty attitude is not the only thing deterred you. Shoto grumbles under his breath, but Katsuki doesn't say anything after that, just patiently waiting for Shoto. Processing this interaction between them, he realized Katsuki had come a long way from being just a bratty child to this mature adult. Shoto sighs. The media keeps comparing me to my dad and Touya. That's old news around Shoto's circle. Every month, the vultures that people call paparazzi keep hunting some BLD to ruin Shoto's reputation. Sure, he has gotten used to it at some point, but now that he's climbing higher in the polls, it keeps getting bad. F animals never knew how to quit, Katsuki mutters. I'm definitely going to start a Twitter war later. Wait, what? Don't worry, icy hot, I'll do it anonymously. That's not, well, you'll do that for me. Why the hell I wouldn't do that for you? Sure, it's also been known to their friends that Katsuki can be intimidating when it comes to argumenting someone on the internet. But for Katsuki to do this, it's ironic for Shoto to get used to being hated by the world for something his family did, but he never got used to the love and care he got from friends who built and supported Shoto from the beginning. Izuku is lucky to have you, especially when Katsuki keeps demanding more and more missions to fund Izuku's suit. The blonde doesn't even focus on himself to the point he's not competing with the other heroes to be higher in hero rankings. Katsuki sputtered. Where the hell did that come from? Shoto shrugs. Just another realization that you're a kind-hearted person, although he already knew about that fact since high school. Who are you calling kind? You. I'm not. You definitely are, Shoto mumbles, ever so softly as he stares at the appealing ruby eyes. Katsuki stares at him with wide eyes before he clears his throat and looks away from him. He would gladly burn for that burning Starlight. It's fine for Shoto to have another scar in his body, a trophy that he had from Katsuki. Shoto realized why Katsuki's devotion to Izuku is so appealing. The love Katsuki can give to someone is unconditional. Shoto hopes they get together soon, or else he might strangle someone. I want someone who can love me the same way Katsuki loves Izuku. I want you, Bakugo Katsuki. A year later, it was only a mere coincidence that Shoto met with Katsuki's parents. Shoto was out shopping when suddenly, Bakugo Mitsuki called out to him. Seriously though, Shoto never saw Bakugo's parents in that shop for years, so it's a surprise he encountered both Mitsuki and Masaru that day. Is that you, Shoto? And that's when Shoto has been dragged for a family dinner, but no one should blame him for not denying the invitation. He can't say no to the woman named Bakugo Mitsuki. This is not the first time he met Katsuki's mother. They met after the First War when parents visited their children in the hospital. Then later on, before the Second War, Shoto got to talk to Katsuki's parents. They keep thanking him for being Katsuki's friend while their own son was raging in the background that they are not friends. Fortunately, Katsuki stopped denying Shoto is a friend after the Second War. So when Shoto entered the Bakugo house as the Bakugo parents him inside, Katsuki merely blinked at him. The F is he doing here? For some reason, it lacked some usual confusion but more like Katsuki is pretending to be confused. Shoto narrows his eyes as Katsuki blinks at him innocently. Katsuki, be nice? Mitsuki glowered at her son before she smiled in Shoto's direction. I met Shoto earlier and I invited him for dinner. Katsuki raises an eyebrow before she sighs. Sure, let him in. Thank you for the kind words, my son. But I'm not asking for permission anyway. You dim an old hag. Please, Katsuki's father says, tone placating. We have a visitor. After that, Shoto awkwardly waited for their dinner while Katsuki and Mitsuki cooked. He sat on the couch, trying to slink himself from the background, but Masaru wouldn't let him as the man started talking to Shoto about the hero rankings. Shoto was surprised that he's comfortable talking to Masaru. There's something about Katsuki's father that made Shoto feel calm, even if their conversations are pure mundane things. Masaru even went as far as to indulge Shoto's theories, such as that one of his former classmates was Aizawa's secret love child. Dinner is ready. The family, plus Shoto, sat at the dining table. Shoto has a pleasant evening as he watches the Bakugo family talk and eat their dinner. Although they are loud, it's clear that Mitsuki and Masaru both love their son, and Katsuki equally loves them despite the nefarious words he points out to his parents. Shoto thinks about his other family. It sober him up real quick. Natsuo has a new life, and he also doesn't want anything to do with 𝗵𝗲𝗏 and 𝗕𝗵𝗏. Although Shoto could tell, there's a chance Natsuo and Touya can talk in the future. At the same time, Fuyumi has her own life. She is still talking to their father and trying to repair the damaged relationship she has had with him since childhood. Touya is still in prison, but it's likely he's going to be out of the prison too, although Touya said he's not interested in accommodating 𝗵𝗏𝗏 just because their father is becoming a decent human being. Speaking of Enji, sure, Shoto doesn't talk to him unless he has to, but as much as possible, he's not going to talk to him just to have a family bonding like Fuyumi wanted to. Thankfully, Enji respected Shoto's decision. And Mom Ray is taking care of 𝗵𝗏𝗏. Shoto despised it. By the way, Katsuki, Mitsuki smirks. How is the hero suit funded for Izuku? It's doing fine. Katsuki chews his food. Make sure after this whole thing ends, you make a marriage proposal to Izuku, Masaru points out. Katsuki sputters. Proposal? We're not even together. Really? Mitsuki deadpants. Masaru looks at his son indulgently, while Shoto snorts. You always go to see Izuku whenever you have the time. You even take him out on dinners whenever both of you are free. You don't even care about your ranking because you're prioritizing Izuku's suit and feelings, Shoto comments one after another. Even some of us don't have much time to talk to Izuku, but for some reason you're able to give him some time of your day. I'm sorry, son, Masaru says, not particularly apologetic at all. But your friend got you there. Katsuki broke his chopsticks as he glared at Shoto, red in the face. How the F did you all know that? Izuku called me just yesterday? Shoto shrugs and starts chewing his rice. He says, "Kakin this, and kakin that." It's exhausting to hear it, but at least your relationship is thriving. Mitsuki watched them with an amused look on her face until she couldn't take it anymore and started laughing at her son's expense. Katsuki looks like he wanted to explode, and Shoto tries to bury his amusement by eating his food to avoid being exploded by Katsuki. Later that day, Mitsuki and Masaru hugged Shoto. They told him they are really thankful he and Katsuki are still friends. They proceeded to give him multiple foods that they cooked. Shoto didn't deny the food, especially when the Bakudeku family cooked too many for the three of them. There's even a cake they bought that the Bakudeku family refused to eat earlier. And when Katsuki and Shoto are alone, Katsuki sighs as he hands a paper bag to Shoto. "It's from your family?" Katsuki says as Shoto glances down at the paper bag in confusion before he accepts the paper bag in his palms. "What is it?" Shoto was about to open the paper bag when Katsuki pushed a box on Shoto's tea. "Happy birthday," Katsuki says before Shoto can reply. "I was planning to have all our classmates celebrate your shitty birthday, but most of them are busy as but the Deku squad will surely be in here any moment now." Katsuki clears his throat. Gingerly, as if Shoto would have destroyed the box with one finger, he inspected the box carefully. Honestly, Shoto was not expecting more of this day. Everybody already wished him a happy birthday, and reading those multiple notifications that morning makes Shoto smile. "Is that the reason why your mother cooked too much?" Shoto blinks. Maybe that's also the reason Bakude's parents are in the same shopping place as Shoto earlier. Yeah. Katsuki smirks, proud of his family and the day for Shoto. He wants to embrace that smirk off his face. Suddenly, there's a car parked right in front of Katsuki's house. Kaken. Izuku gives Katsuki a big smile before his green eyes turn to Shoto with a big, bright smile and leaps toward him. "Happy birthday, Shoto." Shoto smiles softly. "Hey, Izuku." After they disentangle each other, both Izuku and Katsuki look each other in the eyes, something unspoken between them before a small conversation is created. Although Katsuki would never be his, Shoto is already happy for the fact that Katsuki and Izuku would make each other happy someday. When his birthday ended, Shoto found out from Fuyumi that Katsuki came over to all of the family members to retrieve each of their gifts for Shoto. Meaning, Katsuki drove off to different places because the Todoroki family was scattered around Japan just for Shoto. Maybe someday, Shoto will talk about his family again, but not right now. Shoto smiles as he places a limited all-might pocket watch in his closet. He wants to use it, but he's scared that he might break it, especially when he's a hero. At age 22, Shoto was happy for his life turning for the better. Being a hero feels amazing, but reconciling thoroughly with his brother to the point the said brother agreed to live under the same roof and have bonding moments with him is an incredible turning point for Shoto. "I can't believe there's a day I'll see this brat again to help me move in with Shoto," Touya tells the room as his eyes never waver away from Katsuki. Unlike before, Touya's skin is more pale, and his hair is as white as snow. Shoto thinks Touya looks more like their mother. And no, Touya didn't undergo some medical treatment to get that fair skin, but it's more because of his mystery quirk. Katsuki clicked his tongue. But you never expected to move in with Shoto after the war, much less has a semblance of peace between the two of you, yet here we are." Shoto, from where he stands next to his brother, expected Touya to be offended and to give a disdainful glance at Katsuki's form, but what he did not expect is for Touya to look at Katsuki up and down, surveying him with amusement. "You know what, Shoto? Keep being friends with him." Touya smirks to Shoto as he points his thumb to a glowering Katsuki. "Now I know why Fuyumi likes him. I don't know about you, Touya, but Katsuki treats Fuyumi far better than this single interaction you have with Katsuki as of this moment. As if Yumi doesn't know how to tame someone like him. Oi, you fuckfaces, I'm still here." "Oh, I'm well aware." Touya gives him another smirk. "I'm glad you heard our conversation loud and clear." Shoto already flung himself right in front of Katsuki as the blonde wanted to attack him, while Touya just stuck his tongue and wandered away from them to inspect the barren home. As Touya has been pardoned, not exactly free yet, Shoto bought a house for the two of them. Initially, he was living in a place where pro-heroes are secured to live in an apartment building, but that apartment is for one person only, so Shoto decided to buy a house for them. He doesn't want to think about the house Enji bought for them years ago. After that whole debacle, Touya and Katsuki went surprisingly quiet. They talk to each other unless it's necessary as they do their own task, which is moving some furniture and unpacking some boxes. The silence between the three of them is comfortable. Shoto is genuinely happy to have the two people, who are one of the most important people in Shoto's life, here. Shoto, are you in there? A voice from the front door. Shoto beams as he walks away from the kitchen to greet his best friend, Izuku. They hug each other with a smile on their faces. A moment later, Katsuki comes by and greets Izuku with a soft face and welcoming voice that is only reserved for Izuku Midoriya. At the same time, Izuku gives Katsuki pure adoration. Looking at the two of them, Shoto can't help but smile. Although the conversation Shoto had with Izuku years ago is still ringing in his head, Shoto is pretty sure the two of them would have fixed whatever the tension they both have, and Izuku will ring up on Shoto in the future that they'll get married soon. He would do whatever he could to be their best man. Shoto wouldn't settle for anything less. Shoto nods, satisfied with his imagination. Whenever you have that look on your face, you're thinking something stupid, Touya commented as he tapped Shoto's forehead. Ah, hello Touya-san. Izuku immediately bows at Touya. Shoto is thankful that his best friend remembers Shoto's reminder not to call his brother Todoroki, Shigaraki's brat. Touya nods in lieu of greeting. Then, his eyes roam over to Katsuki and then to Izuku again. Maybe Shigaraki was onto something about you too. The F do you mean? Katsuki narrowed his eyes. He mentioned to us Izuku Midoriya's weakness is Bakugo Katsuki. Touya shrugs. So are you two dating now? Instead of answering, Katsuki's face exploded to red as smoke was practically coming out of his ears, while Izuku was also red in the face and trying to sputter out some response. Although there's a tinge of bittersweet feeling in his tea, Shoto still prefers for his two friends to get together already. Watching them pine to each other is painful. Shoto snorts. They are not. But then his mouth turns to smirk. Although I'm expecting to be their best man in their wedding. Shoto! Izuku and Katsuki exclaim, and Touya cackles as he starts to instruct Izuku on what to do. Later on, Touya watches the Wonder Duo argue something about the decorations that Shoto and Touya couldn't care less about. It's obvious they are in their own world. They can't stop looking at each other with wonder and awe in their faces, not even the new house Shoto bought. For short, they are too busy flirting in front of Shoto's salad. Shoto noticed something far more important than flirting. Katsuki looks so tired. Are you really okay with this? Touya questions Shoto once he finishes tidying up the kitchen. What do you mean? Touya rolls his eyes. I may have been in a cell for longer, but my intelligence has never decreased into stupidity. I have eyes, Shoto. I know how you have a look of longing towards that blonde brat. Shoto blinks at Touya, but nervousness bubbles up his throat despite not being as transparent as it is from the outside. Am I obvious? Nah, Touya says. I've been in the streets for years. It's a DMN requirement to know someone's mind when you interact with a stranger who you need to make a deal with. He never knew that's how people lived in the street. Shoto put that information in his, Touya's folder. Shoto sighs. Although I'm in love with Katsuki, I also love Izuku in my own way. He then smiles softly as he watches Izuku and Katsuki interact like they usually do back in the UA dorms. For the two of them to get together is something I genuinely want and a treasure to await. Touya hums, but there's a considerate look on his face. For both of our sake, I hope they do get their act together. With that cryptic message, Touya walked away from Shoto, leaving Shoto confused but resigned because he knows very well his brother can be dramatic like that. At the end of the day, Katsuki and Touya exchanged phone numbers, much to Shoto's confusion and awe. Is there a code Katsuki and Touya share that Shoto doesn't understand? When Shoto and Katsuki had some time alone before Katsuki could leave with Izuku, Shoto pulled him aside. Rest well, Shoto said. I know Izuku's hero suit is important, but your health is also important too. Katsuki's eye bags are more prominent than ever as Shoto stared at him. It overwhelmed the starlight that usually lit up from the ruby eyes. At first, Shoto tried to light up Katsuki's burden, but as the suit funding was about to get finished, he could see Katsuki being impatient and anxious because when this project ended, Izuku would return again as a hero. I'm fine. Katsuki grumbles. Shoto frowned, obviously not believing him, but he nodded nonetheless. After all, he knows Katsuki would always pretend he's fine. Katsuki is stubborn like that. When it was announced to the public of the former villain 𝗬𝗍𝗍's release, the reporters went nuts again, and journalists started comparing Shoto and 𝗬𝗍𝗍, something about the history repeating again. It soured Shoto's mood, but he remained motionless to the media. The people went as far as to ambush Shoto in villain attacks or some natural causes. Unlike his brother, Shoto does not explode, but instead he bottles everything up and takes it to the gym or in his own room where no eyes can follow Shoto's form. His mom called, but Shoto did not answer, even if it hurt Shoto to do that. Natsuo called, but Shoto rejected the phone call, although he texted him. He did try to comfort Fuyumi that he's fine, while Touya tried to hide his guilt and regret whenever Shoto interacted with his brother. Fortunately, Enji only called once and had the grace to read the room when Shoto didn't want to speak with him, unlike his high school days. Weeks went by, and a camera and mic were shoved in his face after a villain attack. This time, Shoto wanted to explode, but an arm around his biceps stopped him. F off, or do you want to shove my fist in your own face? Katsuki shouted to the man who was the first one to ambush Shoto. Shoto stared at Katsuki incredulously. Although thinking about Katsuki's reputation is going to get hurt tomorrow, it hurts, but he's larger than life right now. Not the Katsuki who sometimes has the life drained out of him. You can't speak to me like that. If you want to be a real journalist, search for a way to see if your wife is cheating on your insecure PP, Katsuki snarls. I bet but you never told her about us and your cheating butt and just blamed everything on her. The guy was so red in the face, Shoto immediately grabbed Katsuki and hauled them out of the crowd, leaving for the reporters to write new gossip for the public. Once they were out of that huge crowd, Shoto flew them to a secluded alley and let out a long sigh. Son of a beach, Katsuki mutters under his breath. Shoto looks up to him. Did you really become a homewrecker? No. Oh, I thought you're with that guy. Obviously, IF lied. Congratulations, you will be on the news tomorrow morning. Why would you do that anyway? I was giving them some new DM and gossip. Katsuki shrugs as he smirks at Shoto. And now everyone would be focused on my reputation again. Your family drama is becoming overrated anyway. Shoto can see the vision. It's likely Katsuki would uphold an image of a boy. How did Shoto come to that conclusion? Mina and Shinso corrupted him back in high school with all kinds of reputations the Class A will have once they graduated. You don't have to do that for me, Shoto rubs his right elbow. Especially when you're trying your best to fund Izuku's suit. I do whatever I want, and nothing can stop me. That comment made Shoto smile. He's so in love with Katsuki Bakugo. His phone suddenly pinged. Shoto grabbed his phone and saw Touya's message. I better go back home, Shoto says. Katsuki nods. See you tomorrow or whenever. See you, Shoto replies. Oh, and Katsuki. Thank you. Although there's a stoic expression on his face, Shoto saw Katsuki's ears turning red. When he got home, Touya crossed his arms and scowled. Shitty but beaches reporters. There's a concerned look on his face once it landed on Shoto's form. Are you okay? I'm fine, I already got used to it, like I said multiple times. Touya then smirks. I really like that Bakugo kid, he does not care about public appearances. It's a shame he already had someone because I wanted that demon kid to be my brother-in-law. Touya and I. Hey, I'm just saying. The very next year, before winter has begun, the funding for Izuku Midoriya's suit has ended. Naturally, Katsuki announced he's going to give it to Izuku, with all might by his side. So Shoto was not surprised to hear Izuku sending a recording video on the group chat. He was thanking everyone for the strong work everyone did to be able to afford this armor suit. There's tears in his eyes on that video as Katsuki and All Might patted him on the back. Being a hero is good. Helping everyone makes Shoto light up, but he missed being challenged by Katsuki. As the years passed, Katsuki was not even trying anymore as a hero but more to be a hero that could provide Izuku. A month later, they celebrated their high school reunion when they saw who became the number 2 hero. It was a happy celebration for the Class A, and there were some Class B who also attended. It also ended miserably between Izuku and Katsuki. Shoto has the decency to wait for Izuku to finish his class. The truth is, he wants to burst the door open and demand an explanation from Izuku, but his immaturity days have long been gone, so Shoto waited. When the familiar alarm bell of the school rang, signaling the end of the class, Shoto didn't waste his time to really burst the door open. As expected, every student gawked at him and likely wanted to interact with the number 2 hero. But unluckily for them, Shoto has no mood to do such a thing, especially when one of his friends was hurt by what happened yesterday. Never mind the fact that Katsuki has been ignoring his calls since this morning. Shoto. Izuku blinks at him confusingly. What are you doing here? I want to talk. Shoto gives a sideway glance to the UA students. Alone. As if a SWCH had been flipped, everyone scrambled out of their seats and practically ran away from the classroom. Although some students still hesitated, one look of Izuku's stern glare made those students cringe away. When it's clear they are now alone in this familiar classroom, Izuku awkwardly clears his throat. Before Izuku can make out some words, Shoto cuts him off. You barely spoke to Ochako for years, and now you two are suddenly dating. We're not exactly dating, we're just taking things slow. Same thing, so I'm confused. How did that happen? Izuku fidgets with his 2 index fingers and says, I don't know if you know Shoto, but I liked Ochako when we were in high school. What? Confused, Shoto tilts his head. I thought there's something between you and Katsuki? That again. Shoto, I told you there was nothing. Izuku starts to frown at him, but Shoto notices the way his shoulder hunched up in a defensive way. Nothing. Shoto asked incredulously, You've been obsessing over him since we were in high school. Hell, you've grown closer in recent years. That was nothing, Shoto. Nothing. Katsuki's time and effort for Izuku throughout this year has been nothing. Does Izuku realize how much Katsuki's effort has been wasted for years just to catch up with Izuku? Sure, they were explicitly not dating yet, but some of the people around them expected it. Katsuki sacrificed his longing to be ranking higher because he's too focused on funding that hero suit, and he also wanted to compete with Izuku in being number 1 once Izuku came back as a hero. Shoto knows this because he's been watching Katsuki for years. Recently, Katsuki looks exhausted, as if life is literally draining out of him. It saddens Shoto to see it. What the hell happened? Between the two of us, Izuku? Shoto paused for a moment. I'm supposed to be the oblivious one, so I don't believe you never felt what's going on between the two of you. Something twisted in Izuku's expression before it smoothed out, and his best friend looked away. After a moment of silence, Izuku opens his mouth. I really don't know what you are saying, Shoto. Is that really final? Yes. Something heavy sinks on his tea, then Shoto nods acceptingly. Suit yourself, Izuku. He turns around with one goal in mind. Shoto needs to find Katsuki. Unexpectedly, Shoto didn't have to search for Katsuki. Because the blonde is sleeping on his couch, while Touya nurses a tea for himself and for Katsuki. Shoto turns his head to Touya in question. The brat messaged me, asking me for a bar where reporters can't find him, so I guided him to some questionable bars. Touya takes a seat on another empty couch. Then he ranted to me about a lot of things. Shoto is not going to question Touya, who was a former villain, skirting around some alleyway, so he becomes more focused on Katsuki, who was lying on his couch and dead to the world. He crouches in front of Katsuki's face, not minding Touya watching them. Shoto then pushes the bangs out of Katsuki's head with his knuckles. He noticed the dark circle in Katsuki's eyes and the tear marks trailing down his face. He placed his palm on Katsuki's face and sighed. He doesn't deserve this, Shoto settles as he lets his arms fall. No, he doesn't, Touya murmurs. I'm not surprised this happened. He was chasing a man who never intended to return the same affection Katsuki gave. That kind of devotion is a dangerous one. He glances to Touya as his brother stares at his own cup, a contemplative look on his face. He knows where this conversation is going and was surprised for Touya to open up like this. Touya continues. At least I know somewhere in my heart that Endeavor would never return the affection he once had to me when I was a toddler. He smiles, but it's bitter. But that blonde brat. He was expecting something, but definitely not this one-sided. Shoto sighs as he bites his bottom lip, his concerned eyes going back to Katsuki. I thought he and Izuku had something. Then tell that to the brat, because he was losing his mind and thinking he's being delusional about every interaction he had with that Shigaraki's brat. And isn't that so much worse? Once Katsuki woke up, Shoto pounced on him with words. You weren't being delusional. Katsuki stares at him with a deadpan look before he groans on the couch. Your shitty brother blabbered everything. Not really, Shoto says honestly. After Touya said about his comparison to his own past and to Katsuki's situation, he finished his tea and went upstairs. But you got the gist of it. Yes? He pauses for a second before he continues. I also thought you had something going on with Izuku. Then you thought wrong, we're both being delusional as F. Ask some of our classmates, even Minoma was expecting you two to get together. Ask them. Mina F thought we're just brothers and was even looking forward for Izuku and Ochako to date each other until yesterday. Come to think of it, Shoto remembered some of their classmates fawning over Izuku and Ochako. He even remembers Ochako's crush on Izuku, but the thing is, Shoto thought Ochako had gotten over it. Wait, how did Mina find out about you and Izuku? There's a moment of silence. Shoto can see Katsuki is choosing the words he wants to get out of his throat. They saw me suddenly crying yesterday when I drove them home, he murmurs, and Shoto didn't ask further but still's fine. Maybe you were right about Izuku and Ochako, but half of our class is betting about you too. Shoto hums, I wonder what will happen to the bet. Wait, what? Katsuki immediately sat up, but the headache suddenly fought on him, making the blonde wince. Maybe Shoto shouldn't have said that. Too late to take the words back. Later on, Katsuki finally understands he didn't imagine what he had with Izuku, or at least he's trying to appease Shoto because Shoto keeps repeating the fact he and Izuku got something going on over the years. After their talk, Katsuki offered to cook food for the brothers. Shoto sat obediently and waited patiently for the cold soba to be created. He did miss Katsuki cooking for him. It's one of the reasons he missed having the Class A dorms together. When the cold soba was finished making, Touya finally appeared once he smelled the cold soba from the kitchen. After eating the food Katsuki made, Katsuki then goes to wash the dishes without any say from both brothers. If this were any other day, Shoto would have been the one to insist that Katsuki doesn't have to wash the dishes, but he knows Katsuki needs something to distract himself, so he let his friend be. Shoto, Touya suddenly whispers in his ears. Grab that bag, he's a DMN package. A good future husband. Shoto shoves his brother out of the chair as Touya cackles in delight, while Katsuki just glances at the two of them almost curiously before Katsuki returns back to the sink. Once Katsuki was out of the door, Touya ruffled Shoto's hair messily. Shoto frowns at his brother. I'm serious about what I said earlier, he says. Once word got out that Brat and Shigaraki's brat did not work out, many people would start noticing your beloved dynamite. With that, Touya turned around and went back upstairs. Shoto frowns in his direction because, how the hell does Touya know these kinds of things? Surely his brother is wrong in this department, right? Unfortunately, and this shouldn't be surprising anymore, Touya was right. Because a week later, Izuku announced he's officially dating Ochako, much to most of their shock and some with pleasant surprise. At first, he checked on Katsuki to see if he's doing fine. But Katsuki just looked indifferent as he told Shoto that he was already expecting them to get together, but Shoto stayed with Katsuki as much as he could, offering a distraction. Katsuki cracked a smile at him. It's worth it to see that smile despite the fact he gave up doing his patrol on that day. One good thing that came out of the rejection from Izuki is the fact Katsuki is finally trying to be a #1 hero. I'm happy. Shoto smiled at Katsuki. You're trying to become #1 again. Katsuki blinked. Something flashed in his appealing ruby eyes, but it was gone before Shoto could decipher what it meant. Shoto smirked, the smirk he wore when he's being a little SHT but trying to be oblivious about it, as Katsuki described a few years ago. Although I don't think you'll be able to beat my record for years, or ever. Oh, you're F-on. Katsuki laughed, and it was music to Shoto's ears. Katsuki threw his head back, sun brightly shining down on him, and it's one of the best images Shoto had ever seen. This is the first time in years Katsuki is genuinely laughing with no heavy burden on his shoulder. If he could, Shoto would have taken a photo by now. Back to the topic at hand, Shoto finally saw what Touya was trying to say to him. Shoto watched in horror as he saw 𝗵𝗲𝗍 give Katsuki his favorite chocolates on a patrol. Shoto's eardrums almost burst when he heard Shinso flirting with Katsuki on a hangout. Kami even went so far as to contact Shoto and ask for advice about Katsuki. There's also the fact that some unknown pro-hero handed a love letter to Shoto just to give it to Katsuki. He doesn't even want to start with the fact that numerous people other than the people he knew started flirting with Katsuki, according to 𝗧𝗏, who called Shoto one night and wanted to tell the hilarious adventure of people wanting to get the Bakudeku Katsuki snack. One day, Shoto went home, frustration built up in his face, smoke coming out of his nose and ears. Literally. "Whoa, what happened, little brother?" Touya suddenly sat up. Shoto sat next to Touya and asked his older brother seriously. "About grabbing the DMN package of a future husband, what of it?" "I'll do it." Touya raises an eyebrow, amusement showing. "Let's call your other siblings." "Natsuo and Fuyumi." Shoto asked, "You started talking to them? Not just to say good morning or happy birthday?" "Yeah. Just days ago." Touya starts typing on his phone, unbothered by what Shoto said. "I found out your brat was in contact with those two. I'm pretty sure they'll help you get together with the brat." What a weird way for the three of them to speak again. Although it's not like they don't speak to each other at all, Shoto knew their conversation went as far as greeting each other and not delving into other different topics, so this was still a surprise. It's also a surprise that Katsuki is in contact with some of his family, but he shouldn't be when Katsuki was the one who delivered their birthday gifts to Shoto years ago. Maybe his siblings are more interested in Shoto's love life than he expected. The Class A was also interested in that too, considering the fact they pestered him about it sometimes. Shoto marched inside of Katsuki's agency like he's on a mission. Nobody stopped him as he stepped inside the building, knowing very well that Shoto always comes and goes as he pleases. Still, the bouquet, chocolate bars, and some 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵 in his hands lift an eyebrow to some of them, but most of them look exhausted. There's even a guy who mutters, "Not this again?" Naturally, he ignored them as he walked towards Katsuki's office. He also ignored the bare room that was supposed to be someone's office. Before he knows it, Shoto is right in front of Katsuki's office. To be polite, he knocked, and Katsuki yelled he could come in. He went inside with snacks and flowers on full display. Katsuki stared at him with wide eyes and disbelief. The blonde was about to open his mouth, presumably to shout at him when Shoto cut him off. "I like you, please go out with me." Shoto bowed his head, his voice soft as he spoke. Although he marched here like a soldier, nerves are suddenly prickling Shoto under his skin. Shoto heard Katsuki sigh before his friend opened his mouth. "You know, you're the first person who has the ball to ask me out directly." "Really?" He looked up. "I heard some of them were still planning." "Wait, you know people want you?" For the past few days, Shoto thought Katsuki didn't know. He even told Shoto that he doesn't want anyone's pity because people keep giving him gifts after it coincidentally was known that Izuku and Ochako started dating. To this, Katsuki grumbles, but embarrassment is clear on his face. Ijiro finally said something about it. "I see," Shoto says. "So what are you going to do?" Katsuki leaned on his seat as he eyed Shoto with a critical look. It started making Shoto nervous because it's clear he's indirectly asking Katsuki what he plans to do with Shoto now. He clears his throat to answer. "I was planning to say yes for a few dates, see if it would work." That's a reasonable answer. "Are you saying yes?" There's a moment of pause and Shoto almost felt his heart sink a bit, but he remained placid, or trying to at least. There's a voice in his head that was doubting Shoto's actions. Shoto waits. Katsuki sighs. "Are you not aware that if this worked out and then suddenly it's not working out anymore, we would be awkward to each other?" He questions, "I can't lose a friend, Shoto?" His eyes widened as he understood where Katsuki was coming from. Sure, that can be a possible scenario, but Shoto doesn't think he would be awkward with Katsuki. Maybe at first, but Shoto knows himself and Shoto knows Katsuki. Shoto would be persistent to resume their friendship if their romantic relationship did not work out, And Shoto knows Katsuki is still in contact with Izuku despite the fact Shoto knows there's some tension between them according to Touya. You don't have to worry about that, it won't happen, Shoto firmly said as he resolutely stared at Katsuki, and the blonde is giving an equal measure of the stare. Finally, after seconds ticking by, Katsuki slumped. Ugh, fine, you persistent 𝗵𝗲𝗔𝗪𝗔. At first, the words Katsuki said didn't sink into him. Then finally it does and Shoto beams, grinning ear to ear. Katsuki blinks at him before he scowls. Now give me those snacks, I'm getting hungry just by looking at them. When Shoto phoned his siblings, messaging them in a group chat that 𝗵𝗲𝗍𝗍 created, Natsuo was ecstatic as he messaged him, hell yeah. 𝗵𝗲𝗍 typed multiple emojis before congratulating him, and Touya recorded himself dancing happily. In Touya's video, Shoto rolled his eyes at his older brother's dramatics, but there's a smile drawn in his face as he exited the group chat. Shoto was the one who decided the date. Katsuki glanced at the building before he raised his eyebrows to ask Shoto, aquarium? He shrugs, it has been pretty hectic for you, especially now you're actively trying to become a number one. Shoto smiles at him. I thought you'd appreciate some nice and calming environment. Katsuki stares at him for a moment, contemplating. Shoto almost fidget and hoped he did nothing wrong. Maybe he should have asked his siblings' opinion, but they do not know what Katsuki would like whenever he's in a mood to be calm or to be enraged. Finally, Katsuki nodded. You're right. He then strolled down to the building, Shoto in tow. When they walked inside, Katsuki was surprised everything was deserted. He looked around the corner as the staff smiled at them. Did you reserve this building? He asked incredulously. I did, Shoto says, proud of himself. Fans won't bother us anymore, or at least for today. Katsuki snorted. I'm glad that you did. They both wander around as they watch in amazement at the creatures that swarm around, while some animals decide to stop whatever they were doing to stare at them from the glass. It was obvious Shoto doesn't know all kinds of fish, so Katsuki started educating him about it. It was not surprising to see Katsuki more informative than the building holding the aquarium itself. As they went to a sculpture and drawings of the fish that went extinct, Katsuki went on in more detail about it, even going so far as to say where and when one of the last fish unofficially disappeared. Throughout this, Shoto watches him with fond eyes and rapt attention from the burning starlight of Katsuki's eyes and the voice full of enthusiasm that Katsuki lost after the Izuku incident. Then Katsuki stopped. He frowned at him, tilting his head in confusion. Is there something on my eyes? No, Shoto says. You really look appealing, that's all. Katsuki's face went red. He ducked his head to avoid Shoto's eyes, but then Katsuki remembered himself as he looked up again and stared at Shoto with stubbornness in his eyes that he wouldn't look away. Shoto chuckles before he is suddenly reminded of something, then he grabs Katsuki's hands and says, I have something to show you. As they were walking together, he realized Katsuki went quiet. Shoto turns around to ask, only to see Katsuki staring at their hands that were still wrapped around each other. He forgot that he grabbed Katsuki's hand without thinking. I can let go. Although Shoto doesn't want to, he'll respect Katsuki's boundaries. If you want. But Katsuki did not answer him. Instead, he squeezed Shoto's hands gently, indicating he doesn't want to let go yet. Shoto almost beamed in happiness, but he contained it, or else he might have frightened Shoto away. They entered a room that looked like a cinema. Shoto took them to the best seat, as Katsuki followed him with no hesitation. Once they sat, the ceiling lit up. Their chairs moved, but Katsuki wasn't focused on that as he stared at the ceiling with wonder in his eyes. The ceiling has pseudo-stars, lighting up like real constellations. Each star has an appealing hue and amazement that feels like they are staring at the real stars. Shoto looks at Katsuki's reaction, and once he saw Katsuki's face, it was decided that he doesn't need to see some projection stars but a real star that is sitting next to him. You really outdone yourself, Shoto, Katsuki says, still watching at the ceiling. This is appealing. Yes, Shoto unhesitantly says, it's really appealing. I didn't even know this aquarium has this. Katsuki cut himself once he realized he's being watched by Shoto. No one should blame him when Katsuki is so appealing while basking on the lights. The burning starlight keeps shining and shining, and Shoto will gladly touch the light even if it burns him. Katsuki clears his throat as he looks away. They then resumed watching the ceiling, but there was no awkwardness in the air, just a comfortable silence. On their second date, they go mountain climbing. Katsuki was ecstatic to hear it, especially when Shoto got a ticket to climb a mountain that was expensive to some people. He watched Katsuki being over the moon. While venturing the mountains, Katsuki instructs him on what to do in the wild and how to survive it. There are times Katsuki has to admit that Shoto is a good company because he's a good listener and learns how to do things quickly, unlike the Baku squad. 2 days passed, and they were able to go to the top of the mountain. Shoto watches Katsuki look more satisfied and free as they watch the whole world from the top. "You really like being above everyone else, huh?" Shoto observed. Naturally, Katsuki scoffed. "Just look down, everyone looks so insignificant from all the way here. It's nice to be the big one." Shoto shook his head fondly. "Your head is getting bigger. As it should. And you don't have to climb mountains to feel significant, you're larger than life down there." Katsuki snorts, bitter. "Nobody is special down there." "You are," Shoto firmly says, "at least to me." His ruby eyes widened in shock, trying to come up with any reply. Still, nothing comes out of Katsuki's throat as he stares at Shoto like he never saw him before. Shoto continues, "Do you know how your voice sometimes takes a commanding tone to everyone else, but it's music I can listen to all day? Do you know your face whenever it becomes determined it always turns the shape of the sun that I can't look away from? And do you know your eyes look like burning starlight whenever you stare at something you love?" He didn't realize he was reaching for Katsuki's cheekbones until his hand touched the smooth pale of Katsuki's face. Shoto felt Katsuki hitch a breath under his palms. "You're so special, Katsuki." Shoto softly whispers, "In my life full of tragedy, you're one of my best happy endings I can have, with or without me by your side." And then, Shoto let go, but Katsuki snatched his hands again, full of questions burning his ruby eyes and something, finally letting Shoto in. "Shoto." Katsuki hesitated for a moment. "How long have you been in love with me?" And of course, Katsuki would realize Shoto has been loving him from far for who knows how long. Anyway, that's an easy answer. Since high school, give or take. Huh. What? Seriously? Yeah, why? What do you mean why? You knew I'd been pining after Izuku for that long. I know, Shoto says, albeit confused. What does it matter? You were the number one person, except All Might, who kept supporting my relationship with Izuku and even looking forward to it. So, I love you, and if Izuku is the one you wanted, then that's even better because Izuku would treat you right, or so I thought. Katsuki let go of Shoto's hands. Shoto felt lost for a second before his focus returned to Katsuki again. At the same time, Katsuki took one step back as he glanced steadily at Shoto in disbelief. "And you've been in love with me for years. I couldn't stop. But that must hurt you." Shoto chuckles. "You didn't, I was genuinely happy for you and Izuku." He smiles at Katsuki so tenderly, like I said earlier, "You are one of my happy endings." Katsuki swallows before he turns his head to look down to the whole world again, where he calls the bottom insignificant and no one is named as special. "I see. So that's that." Shoto knows he needs to let Katsuki process everything, so he's not offended by the continuing silence between them. After a moment too long, they need to eat something and then later on, they go back to their normal dynamics as if nothing shocking happened. When Shoto got home, Katsuki thanked him in the message for the mountain climbing, and he looks forward to having another date. Multiple dates came by, and Shoto saw Katsuki start glowing throughout those dates. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 and Shoto met for a brief coffee. It's a coincidence they have free time as of this day, so they took that chance. So right now the two friends are gossiping like they did during high school, or, well, 𝗧𝗵𝗲 would talk about the rumors he heard while Shoto gives him an input. Although sometimes Shoto would be the first one to talk. Instead of gossip, it's conspiracy theories. This time, though, 𝗧𝗵𝗲 has a pack of gossip. "I never thought Izuku and Ochako would get together," 𝗧𝗵𝗲 says as he slurps his coffee shake. "They barely spoke for years, so it's kind of a surprise for me." Shoto nods. Katsuki is the one with the most contact with Izuku for years, So, yeah, 𝗧𝗏 agreed as he narrowed his eyes at the sheikh. Is it bad I'm angry at Izuku? It's not like he owes Katsuki to return his feelings, but Izuku should have properly rejected him, especially when something has been going on between the two of them for years. No, I get that, he says. I'm angry too, but I respect Izuku's decision, more so when Katsuki is now doing fine on his own. Speaking off, 𝗧𝗏 clears his throat, indicating a change of subject. Katsuki gave a task to the Baku squad months ago to spread around the fact he's not available anymore. That's kind of curious. Anyway, we just thought he wanted to have time for himself, especially when he's trying to become the #1 hero now. Thankfully, Shoto was not sipping his cold coffee, or else he might have spilled some to 𝗧𝗏. At first, Shoto thought Katsuki finally had someone, but then his thoughts went to the fact that someone is Shoto. He knows Katsuki. The blonde would have cancelled all his dates with Shoto if there really is someone in the picture other than Shoto. It's been 6 months since he started pursuing Katsuki, so this was a surprise. He's been courting Katsuki for months, but the blonde is still hesitant to officially date him. That was okay for Shoto because he can wait. But what 𝗧𝗏 said, it's still a surprise for Shoto. Or maybe it shouldn't really surprise Shoto. The thing is, Katsuki has been in love with Izuku for years, so Katsuki really needs to sort out his feelings before officially going to date Shoto. After all, Bakugo Katsuki is either to go big or go home. Shoto blinks out of his stupor. What did you just say, Hanta? A year after pursuing Katsuki, there's nothing in his bones telling Shoto to give up. Shoto was glad he never thought of giving up. They went on another date. This time, Shoto decided to search for a spot to see the stars more clearly for the two of them to sightsee. Unexpectedly, Touya knows someplace, but Shoto should have thought it was expected considering the fact that Touya loves stars. He suspects that Touya led someone special there, maybe before the war. Shoto actually asked this to his brother, but unsurprisingly, Touya didn't answer and swiftly changed the subject. Shoto had it planned. There's a warm blanket for them, snacks if either of them gets hungry, and a telescope to see the sky clearly. But what Shoto did not plan was for Katsuki to embrace him under the stars. It was a chaste embrace that Shoto did not unfortunately return because he froze first as his mind went blank. Katsuki scratches his neck awkwardly. That was bad, was it? What? No. Don't lie, 𝗵𝗃, that was my first embrace. I was just really surprised. Wait. Shoto blinks. That was my first embrace too. What the hell, how? The tone of that question is full of disbelief. It almost amused Shoto. He snorted. Do you think I would let just anyone touch me, Katsuki? Katsuki pondered it for a moment before nodding in acceptance. Okay, you got a F point? Now that was out of the way, Shoto starts to lean into Katsuki's space. He almost grins when he notices that Katsuki did not back away but instead was looking forward to what Shoto would do next. Can I embrace you again? Katsuki did not answer, but he grabbed Shoto's nape and pulled him forward. Although their first proper embrace is full of teeth and their nose keeps brushing each other, their second embrace was more manageable, albeit it's full of spit, but the third one is when they are really doing a proper embrace. Then they fourth time in a row, and then fifth, and then sixth, and so on. It's a perfect first embrace, in Shoto's opinion. The first year they were dating, Katsuki outdone everything Shoto did the previous year, and well, Touya was right, Bakugo Katsuki is the whole package. Katsuki always hands Shoto a bento whenever he can. There's also the fact that Katsuki can manage his own time to see Shoto more. Not to mention when Shoto is full of work as the #2, Katsuki tries to help him as best as he can with field work or paperwork. And whenever Shoto has a day off, Katsuki reserves a cat cafe only for themselves. They went to a zoo because Shoto adores animals, and Katsuki went as far as to buy a ticket to go on an island just for the two of them. You don't have to do something as big as this, Shoto softly said, with a shy smile on his face as he stared at the tickets on his fingers. I don't care. I wanted to do this for you, Katsuki stubbornly said. You deserved this as much as you think I deserved the things you do for me. So that's that. Sometimes, Katsuki invites himself to Shoto's house, much to his brother's happiness because Touya knows Katsuki is going to cook for them. They both asked for cold soba, but Katsuki asked them what he should add on the table. Shoto just asked for ice cream, while Touya shamelessly asked for a fried chicken and hot udon. He looked at his brother in disbelief. He was about to open his mouth and say that it's fine, Katsuki, because this is too much, but his boyfriend beat him to it and said it's fine. Anyway, Shoto can now call Katsuki his boyfriend. Shoto feels so giddy about it, but he refrains from grinning whenever he is still in public with numerous eyes on him. After eating, Katsuki persisted in washing the dishes. Shoto eventually gave up and sat down with his brother on the couch. Shoto, I'm going to warn you. Touya starts once Shoto grabs the remote to open the television. What now? Shoto tilts his head. Living with his brother for years, Shoto is familiar with his brother's dramatics. If you fumbled that brat, I'm going back to my villain arc, Touya warned, half jokingly, and Shoto suspiciously thought that warning was also half serious. So be careful, Shoto. Shoto rolls his eyes. I would never give up on Katsuki. Seriously, his brother is so dramatic. The second year they were dating, Katsuki introduced Shoto to the Bakudeku family as Katsuki's boyfriend. When they arrived at the household, Shoto was nervous. The last time he was here, the family was rooting for Izuku. What if they don't like him? What if he can't exceed the expectations or surpass the image of Izuku Midoriya? Don't worry, Shoto, Katsuki smiles. My family would adore you. What if they don't? Shoto stumbles the words out of his mouth. SHT, he doesn't want to mess this up. Then they can go F themselves, Katsuki unhesitantly answers. You're special to me, and no one can tell me otherwise, not even my family. His heart suddenly blooms. Just like that, all his thoughts and worries evaporated as if they were never there. When Shoto entered the household, he was greeted by Mitsuki's hug and Masaru's handshake. They both smiled warmly at him and even went as far as to dot on him by giving food, gifts, and affections. Katsuki, if you broke this boy's heart, I would slap your butt to the F, son, got that? Shoto smiles as he watches the mother and son banter to each other. He was almost amused but overpowered by the warmth Mitsuki gave to Shoto by the words he heard. You need to get used to this? Masaru suddenly chuckles. Watching them like this would be part of your normality. Katsuki's parents, they are expecting Shoto to stay by Katsuki's side forever. It was as if they were giving Shoto their blessings, which, they are. Shoto nods, satisfied and happy for this dinner. I told you, didn't I? Katsuki says once they entered his car, they would adore you. They did. Shoto agreed. Another silence went by as Katsuki focusedly went to the road. Shoto stared at the Bakugo household with longing and regret. A sudden crushing thought paved their way inside of Shoto's thoughts. I'm sorry. Katsuki still has eyes in the road, but the tone of his voice is confused. Why would you be sorry, you idiot? Because I can't give you a warm family like you can give me? Shoto, I can't face my mom because she chose to take care of Enji as if nothing happened, but I understand, I really do. But my feelings can't agree on the matter. Natsai has his own life, and he would never go to a family dinner, not that I blame him. Fuyumi is fine, but I don't want her to stress about having the family get together. I want her to focus on building herself up after the lifetime of choosing her family. Although Touya is fine too, he can't stand to be in the same room as Enji, now more than ever when mom decides to take care of our father. Shoto didn't realize Katsuki was parking on the side of the road until he stopped and Katsuki opened his own car door. With a sudden, horrifying realization, Shoto ranted about his life just like that. If Shoto didn't scare Katsuki away with his family drama, maybe this would be Katsuki's last straw. But Katsuki continued to circle the car until he was in front of Shoto's car door, then Katsuki opened it. Warm arms wrapped around Shoto. Katsuki tucked his chin on his shoulder as Shoto subconsciously rubbed his cheekbones against Katsuki's. Listen to me, Shoto. I don't care about your dysfunctional family because I would accept them no matter what, knowing it's part of you. Hell, F off about not giving me some DM and warm, mushy family. I didn't get together with you because of your family, your relationship, your hero ranking, or whatever possession you have. I'm here because you're here, Todoroki Shoto is here, and I'll love him more each hour and each day. No one can change that, got it? Shoto blinks, suddenly aware of his surroundings. The burning starlight stared right through his eyes. Katsuki spoke the words as if they were written in a prophecy and no one could change it. Katsuki is shining like a sun at the moment. Then, Shoto realized that burning starlight is directly to him. Only for him, only for Todoroki Shoto. "I love you," Shoto blurted out, and he did not regret doing so. Although Katsuki knew Shoto was in love with him, it was never directly said to him but a passing mention. That was fine for both of them. It's not like they were big with words when their friendship started. But maybe that would change considering the fact they are not high schoolers anymore. They are grown, and their relationship has changed so much. Katsuki smiles ever so softly. "I love you too, Shoto." He doesn't miss the fact that Katsuki's face is so red when Shoto said earlier that he loved him. So cute. Shoto leaned in forward, and Katsuki met him halfway. "I would never let you go, so please hang on to me and never let go of my hand. Please." Their relationship was never meant to be a secret. The thing is, Shoto's life has been a television drama since high school. With all the Touya revealing their family's secret and being observed by millions of people, if he would turn out like his brother or father, Shoto's private life is luxurious itself. It's been 3 years since Katsuki and Shoto began dating. Their classmates don't know yet that they've been dating, although they do think the two of them have grown closer. Whenever there's a Class A reunion though, both of them treat each other as close friends, which is fine for the two of them. After all, they never fancy PDAs. Everyone accepted their sudden closeness, especially the public and Izuku. At the same time, Katsuki was always known to be private, so he never announced his relationship to everyone. More so when he found out that some people were betting on Izuku and Katsuki. Additionally, Katsuki has been focused on being in the top 10 since 4 years ago, after what happened with Izuku. He can't have some rumors about dating the number 2 hero, Todoroki Shoto, just to raise his popularity. Shoto is proud to say that Katsuki is now placed in number 3 after years of strong work. To motivate Katsuki further, he goaded Katsuki that he needed to try harder to beat Shoto. His boyfriend pretended to fume, but there's a soft smile on his face when Shoto says he wants to be challenged. Anyway, Katsuki and Shoto talked about the relationship reveal. Whenever they ever want to reveal their relationship to the Class A, Shoto told him that he's not ready yet, and Katsuki agreed. When another Class A reunion was created, Shoto and Katsuki sat next to each other as everyone happily drank their beers. "Are you not going to drink?" Shoto asked. "No way, I have many idiots I need to drive home, including you," Katsuki answered. They both bicker to one another, not even minding what's happening around them. But to the outsiders, this is a normal day for Katsuki and Shoto. "By the way, Katsuki, now that you're in the top 5, I want to ask everyone." Izuku suddenly cut in. "I want to announce something." Everyone looked up to see Izuku standing up with Ochako on his side. They were smiling and giggling to one another, rosy blush on their cheeks. Now that everyone got their attention, Izuku cleared his throat as he clasped his hands with Ochako's. Then, Ochako raised her hand in the air, her engagement ring reflecting on the light. "We're going to get married?" Just like that, everyone went nuts as they scrambled towards the newly engaged couple and started congratulating them. Ochako laughed as Izuku grinned. They both started narrating how it went down, like how Izuku proposed and so on. But Shoto was more focused on the person next to him. He was almost afraid of his boyfriend's reaction to this. But Shoto needed to trust Katsuki more, so Shoto glanced at Katsuki and was surprised to see his reaction. Katsuki was watching the couple almost serenely. He had a proud smile on his face as he watched Class A congratulate the two of them. Finally, he mutters. Shoto blinks. "Did you know he's going to propose?" He snorts. "Did I know? I was the person he called and asked me how to propose to round face, that idiot." For some reason, it made Shoto almost angry at the audacity before he realized that Izuku and Katsuki had already moved on from each other. It's clear how Katsuki is not looking at Izuku with a burning passion of devotion and love, while Izuku is not returning the look of fondness anymore. Then, happiness hooped his belly for his best friend and for his boyfriend. And maybe Shoto is kind of bitter he didn't know about this planned engagement. Then again, that's the Izuku and Katsuki theme. being secretive around each other until the whole world knows. Let's go. Shoto stands up. Let's congratulate them. Katsuki nods as he also stands up. They both went to the couple and gave their congratulations. Ochako and Katsuki started bantering. Shoto always forgot those two had great compatibility as friends. They even have the same taste and fashions. He then tries to talk to Izuku, but for some reason, Izuku is not focused on Shoto but the person behind Shoto, where Katsuki and Ochako are talking. At first, Shoto thought Izuku was looking in Ochako's direction, but when Shoto glanced behind him, it's clear he's looking at Katsuki with a contemplative gaze and with a tint of longing. Something uncomfortable burned in his stomach, but Shoto tried to ignore it. Izuku. Shoto reached out for Izuku's shoulder. That snapped out of Izuku's stare. As he was caught by Shoto's pointed gaze, Izuku ducked and started stuttering with a blush on his face. Sorry, Shoto, I think I was distracted for a moment. Because you were distracted by my own boyfriend. Shinso, who was close to them, sitting on the floor, cringed and Shoto heard the small yikes. Suddenly, Shoto is aware that half of the people in the room are watching both Izuku and Katsuki. How did he know? Because he was one of those people years ago who loved to watch Katsuki and Izuku's relationship. Not to mention, he also knew the familiarity of someone watching Shoto's every move. Instead of being angry, Shoto felt numb at everything. But Shoto shakes off that feeling as he resumes the conversation he had with Izuku earlier. Later, when Katsuki was done dropping his friends off at their own house or apartment, Katsuki glanced in Shoto's direction. But Shoto can't just ignore what happened earlier, even if that was not Katsuki's fault. Izuku was the first to move on. So what were you about to ask earlier? Katsuki asked. Shoto bites his bottom lip. Don't worry about it, it's stupid anyway. Really? Yeah. Another silence creeped around the car. Did something happen? You're kind of withdrawn since the DMN reunion earlier. He cringes. Shoto knows Katsuki does not deserve to be treated like this, but he can't help but subconsciously crawl back to his old shell. Shoto breathed through his nose and tried to steady himself to get ready to ask the important question. It's fine if Katsuki denies it really, but maybe it would hurt. I was planning to leave the Endeavor Agency or change the name, whichever is fine. He pauses for a moment to gauge his boyfriend's reaction. Katsuki just gave a comical hum. I was going to ask if you want to build an agency, for the two of us. There's another pause. Shoto waited as he held his breath, waiting for Katsuki's answer. The car then stopped. Yeah. Shoto turns his head to Katsuki as his boyfriend is grinning ear to ear. What? Do you freaking mean it? Katsuki looks hopeful, waiting for the answer Shoto would provide. He beams. Yeah. Hell yeah. Katsuki shouts as he reaches over to Shoto's figure and starts hugging him with so much emotion. Shoto tucks his face in Katsuki's 𝗧𝗧. He's such an idiot if what happened earlier is what made Shoto almost stop asking this question. I love you, Katsuki. Katsuki's ears turned red as he buried himself further in Shoto's hair. Love you too. It's small and almost shy. Shoto smiles. He's definitely going to propose to this wonderful man in the future. Katsuki is in it for Shoto. Nothing can change his mind. He just hopes Katsuki would say yes though. As thoughts racked his brain of what kind of ring Shoto should buy, Katsuki unexpectedly nuzzles his nose to Shoto's neck. Katsuki. Despite the question, Shoto arches his neck to give Katsuki better access. Katsuki hums at the action before he Shoto's neck quite enthusiastically. Are we really going? It's not the first time we're going to ruin my car. Yeah, the first time they did it in a car was a surprise for Shoto, knowing the fact. Katsuki tends to grumble whenever food starts falling on the floor or the car seat. He still remembered from Siro's stories that Kaminari failed to consider the consequences when he started eating his junk food inside Katsuki's car. To think of himself as special for Katsuki's eyes to do it here well, Shoto was giddy about the notion. Shoto Katsuki's lips, this time it's more experienced and languid than their first embrace before their mouth moves with more passion. Katsuki removed his seatbelt as he started straddling on Shoto's lap. It's one of Shoto's favorite views in his life. Katsuki started him again with more fervor. Shoto groaned as his boyfriend's hands began to wander sensually, so he decided to remove Katsuki's belt while his other hand grabbed the blonde hair to deepen the embrace. The earlier shyness is gone, replaced by the bold movements. Shoto is amused to see how shy Katsuki can be when it comes to words but confident when it comes to actions. When the hero ranking event started, Shoto made it to number 1, while Katsuki made it to number 2. Katsuki warned Shoto that he'd beat his butt and become number 1 next year. Shoto smiles fondly. During this time, Katsuki and Shoto announced that they are going to create a new agency together, much to half of the public's surprise while others' delight. Also, their friends were happy for them. Throughout the event, Shoto was ignored by Izuku. It saddened Shoto, but he thought something just happened, so he'll wait for Izuku to come around. There's also the fact he has been separated from Katsuki throughout the evening, so Shoto went searching for him. When he found Katsuki outside, in a secluded garden, standing next to a large tree there, Shoto was about to go get him when he saw Izuku was also standing there. He stopped in his tracks and immediately hid in the bushes. Shoto doesn't know why he decided to hide, his instincts told him so. So you and Shoto decided to create an agency, Izuku murmured. Yeah. What of it? There's a smile in Katsuki's tone of voice. If you want to congratulate me, you don't have to drag me here, Izuku. You never told me about it. Shoto almost winced when he heard Izuku's voice, tinted with accusation. It's a surprise, Katsuki offhandedly says. Still, another silence went by. Shoto peeked from the bushes and saw Katsuki shifting around with a confused expression, while Izuku was gripping his own elbows tightly. A moment of silence ticks by before Katsuki sighs. I don't know what the F is going on with you, Izuku. He started walking away. But I need to go to Shoto, we plan to leave together after this event. Izuku was about to open his mouth, then he shakes his head and sighs before he nods. But Katsuki didn't see that nod as he left Izuku with that tree. A moment later, Izuku crouches on the ground and starts hugging his legs. Izuku doesn't make a sound, so Shoto didn't either, as he also left that area. That tree next to Izuku is the cherry blossoms. Shoto vaguely remembers that tree was Izuku and Katsuki's favorite tree. During high school, there used to be a tree full of cherry blossoms next to the Class A dorms. Shoto and everyone saw it was Izuku and Katsuki's usual hangout. Those two would sit there and talk to each other for hours during the weekends. Sadly, that tree was cut before the day of the graduation. Bitterly, Shoto hopes the tree next to Izuku will also be cut down. Shoto told Touya about what happened to Izuku and Katsuki during the hero event. Touya snorts in amusement. Oh look, it's the consequences of my actions. He shakes his head. Hawks and that Shigaraki's brat would get along so well. If Shoto is in his right mind, he would have asked why Hawks is in the topic of conversation, but he is not, so he stayed silent as his mind thought about the fact that he might lose Katsuki. That's when Shoto was smacked on the head, albeit gently, from Touya. Whatever you're thinking, don't, Touya firmly says. That brat loves you, Shoto. You've been together for 4 years, 5 if you count the time you've been wooing him. Trust Katsuki more, because I'm fairly sure between you and Shigaraki's brat, he'll pick you again and again. Although Shoto doubted what Touya said, it still comforted him nonetheless. By the way, Touya, how is your studies? Touya requested to go back to school. It's still a surprise that Touya is a really smart person, a genius, and likes to bury his nose in a book. He also used Himura as his surname. It's amazing. Touya sighs with a smile on his face. I'm really glad my quirk is making me incognito with this clear skin, and a surname to use that people doesn't know about. Another event for the Class A. They got lucky, they have multiple free times this year. Katsuki and Shoto thought it's finally time for everyone to explicitly tell them they are dating each other. They talked about it and decided it would be in this party where they'll announce it. But they did not consider when the opportunity is going to be, as everyone is happy for the class to get together again. The class is currently in Yamamo's mansion, everyone is scattered until they need to eat dinner. Hours went by, and the opportunity rose. Everyone, particularly the Baku squad, loves the 𝗧𝗵𝗲 game. Katsuki even likes it because of the challenges it presents. Shoto remembers the time the girls dared Katsuki to act like a Prince Charming for a day, and Katsuki did it flawlessly. So Katsuki grinned when Mina told them they were going to spin the bottle. It's been so long after all. Since high school actually. But the question seems to lean on adult things. Shinso, you dog? Shiro dramatically gasps. You slept with 30 people? And here I thought he's Aizawa too. Zero, Jiraiya commented. Dude, you just made me imagine Aizawa sleeping with multiple people? Kaminari whined. But Shinso and almost everyone that followed scowled at the blonde. You just made it worse because now all of us are imagining it. Shinso exclaims. They immediately move on to the next topic, enthusiastic not to think about this topic clearly. And then Mina resumed the game. The tip of the bottle was pointed to Katsuki. Half of the class became intrigued. It's obvious they are going to ask about Katsuki's love life. Shoto scowled as he remembered that some of them did try to take out Katsuki on a date. So, Katsuki. Mina's eyes turn into a dangerous glint. But Katsuki wasn't deterred. She already got used to this type of game from Mina. What? How many people did you sleep with? Tsuyu snorts. I bet it's over 30 like Shinso, Karo? Or maybe more than that. Kirishima suggested. Audrey rolls his eyes. He was busy with work, but maybe it would be less than 20. What the hell? Katsuki blinks at them. How can you assume I've slept with so many people? Mina chuckles. Don't you remember the scandal you had years ago? She shakes her head as she remembers. About sleeping with the reporter? Huh, Katsuki mumbles as he takes a sip of his beer. I only did that because they kept annoying Shoto about his brother. It's obviously a lie. Shoto smiles fondly at the memory. Looking back, he's pretty sure Katsuki was still a virgin at that time, same as Shoto. So clearly, Katsuki did not sleep with anyone until they got together. Really? Hagakure mumbles. In hindsight, that's kind of obvious, Shinso murmurs. Katsuki glances at Shoto and Izuku. Did you not tell them about this? Why would I say anything? When you also never bothered to correct their assumption. Shoto casually questions. That's sanity left point. To separate himself Katsuki from Katsuki says when Shoto clearly has a valid clearing his throat. Well, I kind even of though forgot. Their lips are not Izuku pressed chuckles. To each other anymore. Sorry, Katsuki and Shoto smile at each other softly as if they are in their own world. Whoa, I get honestly, that Shoto knows. Shoto could get but how did Izuku know Katsuki's eyes? We used to video call in a good way. Katsuki shrugs. We get it now. I mentioned Kirishima it to him. Laughs as Shiro shakes his head reason, in amusement. Shoto felt everyone was on high alert as they both observed Katsuki and Kaminari Izuku. Rolls his eyes. At the same time, Izuku were making you and while Katsuki remained unbothered by what he just shouting their reactions he caused. And Shoto can see they are genuinely happy for the one person. It lights up Shoto's Ochako made her way throughout the crowd and gave Shoto a big grin. Are you perhaps not interested in sleeping with other people? Katsuki glances at Shoto's direction. Goes over to him for some reason. Ochako starts giving a shovel talk to Katsuki trying to say. While they are happy for Shoto nodded at him, and Katsuki started smirking widely. Although there's a smile on his face, I'm very interested. It's a little bit reserved. Katsuki says. Shoto felt his only with my boyfriend a little. Everyone blinks at him. For these kinds of things where it's celebrating Shoto's happiness, Katsuki would be the first one to be happy for him reaction, and enthusiastically Shoto feels bitter as some of them discreetly glance at has been avoiding replying to Shoto's messages. Shoto even when Shoto and all of them were expecting for Katsuki and Izuku to happen for years only to have one of them move on with someone. Shoto told this to Touya during his day off. Shoto sees Izuku's wide eyes stare in Katsuki's direction. That's what? Mouth gaping open. It was as if Izuku couldn't speak but was trying his best to remain composed. On the couch and gave him a look. Shoto, Kaminari, I know you can be oblivious sometimes, Katsuki smirks. But you and I know the reason why Midoriya is ignoring you after you announced your relationship with Katsuki. Clearly, the fact all of them are processing it as their heads keep whipping to Katsuki and made Shoto realize this is serious. It was like they were in a ping-pong match. Touya to call some of Shoto's classmates the League of Villains brat. I'm the boyfriend. It also indirectly means since when did this happen? Fond of those so-called brats. Mina demands to know all the details as her hands are itching to grab Shoto's shoulders. Ochako Himiko's brat. Katsuki shrugs. So for Touya to call Shoto's best friend by surname means he's already done with Izuku. Kirishima doesn't even know how to react other than to stare at him. Is he? Why did
Although
you keep
the
it a
words
secret?
are harsh,
No,
Touya's
wait,
eyes became
you never
gentle.
kept it a secret?
Over the years,
We should have
I can
expected
count
it
on
when
one
Katsuki
hand how
was
many
treating
times he
Shoto
visited
like
your
a
home and you
boyfriend for the
barely
last
talked
few
about him
years.
anymore.
Kaminari
𝗬𝗏
murmurs.
or Ida
Such
is the
as
one I would think of
𝗬𝗏
as your best friend
questions.
these past few
Dude,
years.
Katsuki keeps
But,
cooking
and
Shoto's
also,
food,
Touya
going to each other's
immediately
houses,
cuts him off.
having a day off with
A best
Shoto
friend
together,
would never
and being
ignore their
close
friend
in general.
like 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 did.
𝗓𝗏 answers helpfully.
Shoto sighs as he
Ochako
mulls
smiles
over what
wisely.
Touya said.
Oh, I
All
see.
of what Touya
So we're
said
the
is
dumbest.
true. Ida
Shoto
even
is
nodded
not
in
an
agreement.
idiot. Far
Shoto
from it.
even
But the
mentioned
only
to us
thing he
about
has now is
Katsuki's
denial.
closeness. That's what
Why
keeps
didn't I
holding
notice it
Shoto
before?
together.
Because we had been
hero that
expecting
the scarred
Izuku
high
and
school version of
Katsuki
Shoto
to get together
adored,
since high
because
school.
𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏
saved him.
What?
But Shoto
They
needs
already
to
moved
consider
on.
the fact
So
Shoto
what's the
is
point
not
of
the
being
damaged
quiet
high
about it?
schooler he used to be.
𝗓𝗏𝗧𝗏 shrugs.
And Deku is not the hero and
𝗓𝗏𝗧𝗏
friend he was to
actually has a
Shoto.
valid point.
They both changed.
Wait, what the hell?
Two friends
𝗓𝗏𝗧𝗏 made a
pulled
good
apart
point.
and lived different
Shoto
lives.
stares at the
Changed.
purple guy with an
Shoto nods to his
incomprehensible
brother,
gaze,
and Touya gives
Shoto
him a
shakes
smile.
off the revelation
But before he
afterwards.
stood up,
He's
he
not
hugged
actually
Shoto
wrong.
gently with more
Even
hesitation
𝗓𝗏
at
is
first.
confused to be
This
in
is
agreement
something
with
new
𝗓𝗏𝗏.
for Shoto and Touya.
Shoto sees Izuku
He returned the
smiling
hug
at
and
them,
hoped
but
Touya
that
could
smile
feel his
seems
feelings
fake,
of gratitude.
and he tries to put it
When
together.
Shoto came back
At
to
the
work
same
on Monday,
time, he was going to
Katsuki
surprise
starts
watching
Katsuki
all
with
of them as
chocolates
if
and
they are
flowers.
entertaining him. It reminded
Come to think
Shoto
of it,
of the day
that's
he
like
asked
Touya's thing to
Katsuki
do.
to date him.
Seriously,
As he opened the door
Shoto's
of
brother is a
Katsuki's
bad
office,
influence.
he was surprised to
I
see
did hear
Izuku
from
was
Shoto
there
that
talking
you had
to
a
his
bet
boyfriend
about when
as
me
if
and
Izuku
Izuku
would
would
not
get together.
ignoring Shoto's
Katsuki
messages.
sharply says,
With the
making
sound of the
most
door
of them
opening,
flinch.
the two
The
people
bet?
in the room
Ida
stopped
asked
talking
in
and whirled
confusion.
their heads to
I
Shoto's
never knew
form.
it actually existed.
Izuku was
Ochako
immediately
blinks
tense
in bemusement.
but Katsuki's
Some
face
voiced their
brightened.
confusion while
Shoto,
others, such
he
as
stands
𝗓𝗏𝗧𝗏
up as he
and
notices
others
the
look away in
flowers
guilt.
and chocolates.
What actually
That's
happened
for
to
me.
that bet? Though?
Shoto's eyes
Shoto
softened as he
questions,
made his way
curious.
to Katsuki.
We decided to
Of
get our
course
money
it's for
back.
my appealing
Ādru
boyfriend
says mournfully.
So, now that we're
And
talking
like a
about
hypocrite
this,
he is,
𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 exclaims
Katsuki
as he
Shoto
glances
on the tip
between
of his
Izuku
nose.
and
Katsuki is
Did
red
nothing
in the
really
face from the
happen between
compliment.
the two of you?
Love you,
𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏.
Love you too.
That's rude.
Shoto replies.
Momo reprimanded
Someone
the invisible
cleared his
girl.
throat.
Shoto
Alright,
is right there.
Izuku is still
Oh,
here.
I'm so sorry.
Shoto separated
It's
himself
fine.
from Katsuki
He cuts
and
him
saw
off softly,
Izuku awkwardly
then a smirk
fidgeting on his
emerges
chair.
on his face.
Right?
You're
I'm
still
also
here.
quite curious.
Katsuki snortly
Really?
says.
Shoto
He
is
then
genuinely
grabbed the flowers
curious
and
because
chocolates,
at
so
the
he
end of
did
the
not
day,
see Izuku's
Shoto
hurt
was a
expression.
former shipper
But
of the
Shoto did.
Izuku and Katsuki
He doesn't know whether
ship.
he's glad
And
Katsuki
Touya might be
does
right.
not know
He
Izuku
needs
was
to trust
ignoring
Katsuki
Shoto
for
for
a week or
and
not.
it's not like his
Both of you are
curiosity
not
can
much
make
into
Katsuki
PDA, right?
𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧
Izuku
and
questions
suddenly for
hesitantly.
Shoto to become an
Note
ex-boyfriend.
what you saw earlier
At
is
Shoto's
very
permission,
rare.
Everyone turns to
Katsuki smirks
Izuku,
teasingly.
silent question
We
in
do
their
the
eyes,
sappy
but
things
loud
in
enough
private,
to know what the
unlike
question
you.
is. Izuku frowns.
blushed.
Me. Nothing happened between me and
Katsuki
Kakin, I
breathes
swear.
out.
More amused
Then
as he
his friend
continues
started
teasing
another
Izuku.
tirade of
The
mumbling,
first year you were
making
dating
everyone
round
watch
face.
him in fondness.
PDA was suddenly
As much as
in your
Mina
DM
is
rendition
fond
of
of
him.
She
She
still
not.
wants to hear the
You
tea.
definitely are.
So nothing at all.
Katsuki's tone
Really,
of voice
guys,
turns wistful.
There's nothing.
I would definitely
Kirishima
remember.
looks at him
Is it possible
incredulously.
somewhere in Katsuki's
You're kind of
heart
possessive of
he's still in
Katsuki
love
during
with
high
Izuku?
school?
I was
Suddenly,
not. Shoto
he's
is
just
afraid
my
that if
precious
ever he
childhood
found
friend.
out Izuku has feelings
Should
for
we even
Katsuki,
mention the fact
he
you
would
got
suddenly
angry at
leave
Monomo
Shoto
in the
because he
dust?
insulted
He
Katsuki.
cursed his own abandonment
Shinso
and
casually
attachment
commented
issues.
as everyone
Although
whipped their
Shoto
heads
needs
to
to
him.
trust Katsuki
I do
more.
remember that was
It's
the
still
first time
strong
you
for him to
unlocked
do
your
so.
new quirk. Maybe
Wait,
because
what?
Shoto is
Katsuki
familiar that
frowns
love
at
is
Izuku.
conditional
You
despite
never told
the
me that.
therapy he went through.
I'm just angry
He
at
gave
his
his
behalf,
mother love
that's
and
all.
support, but
His
his mother
mother
went
glares
back
at
to
Shinso.
Shinji after all this
Seriously,
time.
guys,
There's another
half
time
of the
Touya
class
wanted to
accepted
kill
it with
Shoto
grace
because they
the
never
masterpiece
understood
that
their father
Katsuki
created.
and Izuku dynamic
Fuyumi
even
chose
before
for the family to get
Katsuki's
together
apology.
beyond Shoto's
Although
boundaries.
half of them discreetly
when she gave
glanced at
Shoto's
Izuku
phone
with
number
dubious
numerous
looks,
times to NG,
mainly Shoto.
and Natsuo
Shoto
is not
never knew
interested
about
in
that
healing
incident
together
with as siblings but chose to be on their separate ways until he wanted to talk out unexpectedly had another quirk. So Shoto is afraid. There was never a trigger. Absurdly so. Even after the revelation about the one for all, Izuku said he doesn't have a clue what happened back there. Just that his OFA quirk became like that. I need to talk to Shoto about something. Flashes to when Izuku had a look of longing in his face while staring at Katsuki, and when Izuku talked to Katsuki, it's clear Katsuki wants Izuku to hero ranking event, and Shoto feels something twists about in Shoto's guts. When Katsuki saw Izuku's hurt expression this time, all their former classmates have a dangerous glint in their eyes. Ready to eat up what Katsuki will say. But I really do need to say something to Shoto. Shoto feels nervous about what Katsuki's answer is going to be. Izuku truly he more or less did admit about his Shoto and Katsuki. But still, when the door closed, he was surprised but happy that calmly says as immediately jumped on him and started him around the face. Shoto didn't even blink at the revelation because he already knew about that fact. What's that all about? Shoto decides to see Izuku's reaction, and his best friend looks so arms wrapped around his revelation as if he's seeing Katsuki again for the first time. Thanks for giving me chocolates and flowers. Do you
Then,
like it? Although
I love it.
Izuku was my first
Katsuki
love.
sat on his office chair,
places
pulling
his
down
hand on Shoto's knee.
As
Then he
Shoto was
stares
about
at
to
Shoto
open his
with
mouth,
an open expression that can
Katsuki
be
started
described
straddling
as love.
Shoto's lap
I
and
intend
him on the
Shoto
lips.
to be my last.
This was not the
This
first time they
when
messed
something
around their
swoops
agency.
into Shoto's stomach.
Katsuki
It's
cradles
not
Shoto
unpleasant.
gently by
Since
caressing
when
his
did
neck,
Katsuki
their
become
mouths
so
moving in
smooth?
tandem.
Just
At that
letting
moment,
feel the
Shoto
warmth on
noticed
each other's
how
lips.
red Katsuki's
Shoto
ears are as
playfully
he tried to be
bites
confident
Katsuki's
in
bottom
front
lip
of their
as
former
Katsuki's
classmates.
right hand
He can't
starts
help it
sneaking
really.
under the shirt.
Shoto grabbed
Thankfully,
Katsuki's
Shoto
nape
is
and
still
pressed their
not in
mouths
his
together.
hero suit.
And
Katsuki
Shoto
deepens the
deepens it
embrace
with so
as he
much
starts
passion
messing
as
with
he
his
starts to
boyfriend's
cradle
soft hair.
Shoto's face
His
gently.
mind flashes
Although
to the
Shoto is losing his mind because of the embrace, with tongue and softness in a mix, he still has possibility of Katsuki and Izuku getting together. Shoto starts desperately picking up the pace of the embrace and begins to move his hips. Katsuki didn't question it as he started groaning in pleasure when their tongues passionately moved. Then, his mind starts to wonder if, in the next 5 years, Izuku might be the one in his position. Without any warning, Shoto abruptly separated himself from Katsuki. It was so sudden to the point Katsuki became highly alert. His eyes wandered to their surroundings, expecting a villain attack, but there was none. "Hey!" Katsuki reaches out to Shoto's face. "Is there something wrong?" Instead of answering, Shoto weakly smiles. "I love you. I love you too." He answers automatically, as if his love was never a question, and maybe it never was. "So did something happen?" "Nothing." Shoto snuggles his face to Katsuki's collarbone. His boyfriend starts rubbing a circle on Shoto's back. "Really? Just, you can talk to me about it, you know?" "I know." The true answer is Shoto doesn't know. He clears his throat. "So, is there something you really wanted to talk about, or you just made an excuse to make out?" "Oh, that." Katsuki becomes tense. Shoto frowns as he starts to extricate himself from Katsuki, but his boyfriend stops him as he holds onto Shoto's waist. "Katsuki, do you want to live with me?" Katsuki blurted out, and Shoto's eyes widened. "If you're worried about Touya because he still does need a DMN hero to keep an eye on him, he can stay with us, I don't mind it. But if you're concerned about the fact we need to move to another house for 3 people, I started searching for some houses. Or if you're not comfortable with that option, I can live in your house." He stopped his rambling before his ruby eyes became concerned again. "But if you're not ready for that, it's fine, Shoto. I can wait for another 5 years. Shoto feels Katsuki's hands trembling as Katsuki continues speaking. He grabbed the rough hands from Shoto's waist, and Katsuki becomes still. His boyfriend waited with bated breath as Shoto kept his silence. Holding the 2 familiar rough hands Shoto loved, he Katsuki's knuckles as he stared at Katsuki's eyes with so much love. "Yes, Katsuki." Shoto softly says, "I want that." Katsuki grinned and started enthusiastically Shoto again. This time, no flashes of Izuku entered his mind but the future Shoto has with Katsuki. The euphoria ended. Shoto should have known. Izuku sometimes invites himself to the Dynamite and Shoto's duo agency. He keeps talking to Katsuki about everything and nothing. He knows it always has been that way to Izuku and Katsuki, especially when they have many things in common. Still, it Shoto off. Maybe Shoto is being unreasonable because they are close friends, but damn it, it's different when you know there's a chance Izuku likes Katsuki. There's also the fact that Izuku refused to talk to Shoto, so Shoto also refused to do the same. Not only is Izuku being a bad friend, but he keeps trying to steal Katsuki's attention whenever he can. To Katsuki's credit, he starts getting confused about why Izuku is always in their agency. And of course, Katsuki noticed Shoto's cloudy attitude toward Izuku, and the way Izuku and Shoto interact sometimes is always short and dry. When they were alone in Shoto's office, Katsuki began to ask. His boyfriend sat in front of the desk while Shoto continued doing his paperwork. "So what happened between you and Izuku?" "Nothing." "Shoto." "Please, Katsuki." Even Shoto himself was surprised by that plea of his voice as Katsuki blinked at him in astonishment. "I don't want to talk about it." Katsuki observed him for a moment, checking every sign of what made Shoto distressed, but he found none. Katsuki sighs as he stands up and leans forward to embrace him on the cheek. "Don't forget I'm always here for you, okay?" Shoto nods, and Katsuki looks satisfied as he leaves the room. When another week started, Shoto was surprised to see Izuku was not around the agency for the whole week. And another week went by, there was still nothing. He opened the 𝗧𝗵𝗲 group chat and saw Izuku is doing fine, so the reason he stopped coming is not because of a villain but something else. One possibility comes into his mind, Katsuki. Shoto doesn't know why, but he's more anxious than ever. Sure, Izuku is not here because it might possibly have something to do with Katsuki, who wants to lessen Shoto's stress, but there's a chance they sometimes meet outside the agency. He doesn't have the ball to ask Katsuki, so he left it as that. It's been 5 years since he's been dating Katsuki, and Katsuki started moving into Shoto's house a week ago, much to Touya's increasing happiness, especially when Katsuki is being a good chef. The class gets to have another reunion, but this time half of them can't make it, including Ochako. Both Katsuki and Shoto had free time that evening, but then Katsuki was delayed because Mitsuki and Masaru wanted something from him, so Shoto arrived alone. The people who have already arrived are Shinso, Aoyama, Mineta, Momo, Hagakure, Ajur, Tokoyami, and Sato. He greets his classmates with a smile but ignores Izuku. Some of his classmates talked about their job getting hectic again while others were talking about non-hero work. His phone pinged, expecting Katsuki, but it's only 𝗧𝗏 as he messaged Shoto that the Baku squad would be there soon, minus Katsuki. Still, Shoto was glad they'd make it. He decided to welcome them outside the restaurant, so he left his other classmates for a while. As they were walking to the reserved VIP room, the baker started asking about his relationship to Katsuki's. "So how are you and Katsuki?" Mina questions, a little giddy. "I don't know if Katsuki told you, but he moved in with me last week." "Katsuki did tell us," Kirishima enthusiastically exclaimed. Although he tried to hide how happy he was, it was still obvious. "I'm jealous." "Then ask out Kyuka, you'll stop being jealous then." "No way, Hanta. There's something going on between Momo and Kyuka, I will never get in between them." "Bro, Polly is an option." "Shut up. It's not like you also don't feel the same towards Momo." "Hanta." Kaminari hissed, but there's a blush on his face, and 𝗧𝗏 cackled at his friend's expense. "Anyway, Shoto." Kirishima cleared his throat with a stern look at his friends, and the Baku squad immediately tensed up. "Yes." For some reason, Shoto starts getting afraid. If you hurt Katsuki, Kirishima hardens his quirk as the others activate their quirk, but 𝗧𝗏 has a welcome smile on his face. "It's a warning. Got it? It's not unreasonable to get protective of Katsuki, he would be too." At his response, they deactivated their quirk, and Mina jumps on Shoto's shoulder. "Sorry, we're kind of protective of Katsuki. Especially when Midoriya rejected Katsuki years ago." "Denki!" 𝗧𝗏 exclaimed as he reprimanded Kaminari. "You can't blurt out that incident." "Don't worry," Shoto gently interjected. "I've known since we were in high school that Katsuki has been pining for Izuku, so I can imagine how that went down." The group all looked each other in the eye, then they sighed. Kirishima frowns, anger and sadness mixed in his eyes. "He was crying when we got in the car after he said his goodbye to Izuku. I never want to see Katsuki like that ever again," Mina says solemnly. Both 𝗧𝗏 and Kaminari nodded in agreement. The group's aura turned sour, so they walked to the reserve room in silence. As Shoto was about to twist the doorknob, a voice stopped him. "They find I'm in love with Kaken. Pappy." All of them are suddenly still as they silently agree not to enter the room yet. He doesn't know Katsuki's close friends' reactions to this. Shoto was more focused on himself as he felt numb. He already knew about this possibility to the point it can be considered a fact anymore, but still Shoto was surprised. Shinso hummed, "I'm curious, since when were you in love with him?" I don't know. Maybe when I was a child or when I was in high school. I really don't know." "Then why did you go after Uraraka?" Mineta asks, voicing everyone's confusion. "Kaken was a boy and I don't know," Izuku murmurs. "I also thought I fell out of love." "Izuku, I'm sorry to say this, but that's bullshit." Shinso. "Sato, I'm just telling the truth." "You don't have to word it like that." Shinso went quiet, but Shoto could feel his frustration all the way out here. "I agree with Shinso though," Ajur says.
You've been obsessed with Katsuki for ages. Guys, can we consider the fact that Izuku is currently still figuring out his sexuality? Aoyama carefully says. Momo sighs, even if he does, it's not like Izuku can do anything at this point. Katsuki is happy with Shoto, and Izuku is Ochako's fiancé. Speaking of, you need to talk to Ochako about this. Hagekyu's tone is stern. I know. Izuku groans. I'll talk to her about this, but I also need to tell this to Kaken. I don't know about that, Ajuru mumbles. Izuku, I don't think you have the right. I got it, okay? But Izuku interrupted Shinso. But I don't think I can hide my feelings any longer. I want to say something to him. And then what? Tokoyami questions. Then, Izuku went quiet, but Shoto had enough. Shoto twisted the doorknob and walked inside the room. All of their friends became quiet with worry. In his peripheral vision, he sees Kirishima and others enter as the sound of the door closes. Shoto, Momo starts to stand up, but maybe there's something in his face because Momo suddenly stopped and everyone became tense. Shoto slowly turns to Izuku, looking down at him as Izuku stays sitting on the floor. What are you expecting once you tell Katsuki your feelings? You want him back, don't you? Izuku stands up. That's not. Then what the F were you expecting when you suddenly invited yourself every day to our agency? Shoto shouts, making everyone flinch. You kept talking to Katsuki as if you now had the chance to be with him. I was just asking about what he's doing. You never did that before we announced that me and Katsuki were together. Shoto, no. He exclaims, all the emotions he bottled up exploded. I don't think you're respecting my relationship with Katsuki. You're not even respecting me because you started ignoring me. And now you're in love with Katsuki, my boyfriend. And then you're planning to confess your feelings. Well, congratulations. You figured out what you knew all along, but you have no right to steal him away from me. Tears suddenly trailed down Izuku's eyes, but Shoto wasn't moved by it. I don't know what I want anymore, but I want my Kaken back, Shoto. He's not yours anymore, Izuku. Shoto shouts, frustrated and angry. Get that to your thick head. He was mine first. As if that's not what Izuku wanted to say, his green orbs widened in shock, putting a hand on his mouth. But Shoto wasn't having it. You had your chances, Izuku. Since high school. You had your chances for 8 years straight. But you blew it away, so don't whine about the fact you chose to put a ring on Ochako's finger and ignore Katsuki's importance in your life until it's too late. Shoto, please. I asked you when we were 3rd years. Shoto sobs, not realizing he was crying until this moment. You said nothing is going on between the two of you. I accepted that even though it's clear there was something. For years, I supported the two of you despite the fact I'm so in love with Katsuki, but you were my friend that I care about, so it's fine if you two got together. Truly, I would have been ecstatic. Then, 8 years later, you rejected Katsuki. I asked again about your feelings, but you said it was nothing again. I accepted and moved on. I asked you these questions before I even thought I had the chance to be with him. So please, for the love of anyone from above, don't you dare mess my life just because you were coward to admit you're in love with Katsuki. He huffs, out of breath. Shoto sniffs, his shoulder trembles, and his hands start to shake. He is now happy with his life, so why is this happening? Shoto, Siro was about to reach out to him, but Shoto stepped away as he shook his head. At this moment he doesn't want to be touched. Kirishima sighs, stepping next to Shoto. Midoriya, the usually upbeat Kirishima looks more down than Shoto ever saw, but there's an edge of anger and disappointment in his eyes. I don't know what to say. He cursed, and Shoto felt the same sentiment. That's when the door opened again. So another shitty reunion with the extras. Shoto's eyes widened, his shoulder tensing again from the inevitable. Still, he did not turn around to welcome Katsuki like he usually does. Why the F is Izuku crying? Hey bro. Kirishima decides to turn around, his voice sounds shaky. There's a moment of silence. Everyone knew if Katsuki was so still and silent, 2 options were on the table. Either he's really angry or he's observing everyone like he's picking them apart. Either way, it gets everyone so uncomfortable. Shoto,
Of course Katsuki would know something even if Shoto's back is on him, hiding his face. Katsuki starts walking closer to Shoto based on the sound of the footsteps. But maybe Shoto was being delusional and was really walking towards Izuku, who is visibly crying and is right in front of Shoto. Izuku steps forward, expectant in his eyes. Shoto swallows the bile in his throat. He turns around and starts running for the door, just to get out of that shitty reserved room. Shoto! He heard Katsuki shouting, but Shoto didn't stop. Shoto locked himself in the men's bathroom, one of the stalls. He thinks Katsuki and Izuku start to talk and then have a happy ending. Izuku talks to Ochako while Katsuki talks to Shoto. Shoto sobs. Shoto. He jumps at Katsuki's voice. Shoto didn't know someone, much less Katsuki entered the bathroom. A voice suspiciously sounded like NG scolded Shoto, telling him that he got lucky it's someone he knows and not a villain. Please open the door. He sniffs as he stands up and opens the stall. Shoto went back to sit on the lid of the toilet, pulling up his knees together and waiting for Katsuki to tell him what he'd do next. There's some shuffle from Katsuki. He didn't realize Katsuki was kneeling in front of him until Katsuki grabbed Shoto's shoulder, making Shoto look down. What happened? He gently probed. Did Ijuru and the others not tell you? Shoto, UF ran away crying. My body moved on its own, and my demon body wanted to comfort my boyfriend at that moment. Even now. Maybe it's the tone of Katsuki's voice, so gentle and welcoming. Maybe it's the fact Katsuki chose to go to Shoto's aid despite the fact he saw Izuku crying first. Maybe it's the vulnerable look from Katsuki's face. Worry and love for Shoto are so visible in his face. There is no mistaking the definition of that expression. Shoto broke down crying. Naturally, Katsuki immediately held him to his 𝗧𝗓𝗧, and Shoto succumbed to the person he loved for years. The person who has Shoto's many firsts and the person Shoto wanted to last. He hates the fact Izuku could do this to him, one of his best friends and the person who he considered his hero. Shoto despised his own insecurity that always made a war with doubts, thinking Katsuki would leave him at any moment. And he loathed the fact he's crying again, and everything is too much for him. For the first time in years, Shoto broke down crying. When Shoto starts calming down, Katsuki is still holding him. They are not minding the bathroom floor. Normally, Katsuki would start complaining about how dirty the floor is. Shoto was also surprised no one was entering the men's bathroom at the moment. Taking a glance at the door, Shoto saw it's currently shut. He knows Katsuki like the back of his palm, so he knows Katsuki put a sign outside the bathroom that is not available. Are you okay, Shoto? He nods, sniffing. Would you mind telling me the F happened? He paused before backpedaling, or maybe we can just go home. He thought of going back home, but the remainder of Touya waiting there is quite frightening. Not because he was scared of Touya, he's scared of what Touya will do once he finds out about his fight with Izuku. Maybe Shoto should vaguely say some things after all. Touya already knew Izuku's feelings for Katsuki. Shoto shakes his head in lieu of a direct answer. Then, I think you need to talk to Izuku. But just because. Katsuki begins to frown. Is he the F reason you cried? What the hell happened to the two of you? Izuku realized how much he's in love with you. Shoto blurted it out. He considered earlier to keep quiet, but this is a serious matter that Katsuki needs to be ready for if he wants to talk to Izuku. As expected, Katsuki looked shocked. His eyes widened and his mouth gaped as he stared at Shoto in complete disbelief. Shoto knows the feeling, especially when Katsuki sought Shoto out for comfort when Izuku rejected him years ago. Shoto cleared his throat. If you want to break up, huh? If there's a chance that you're still in love with? Katsuki flicks Shoto on the forehead. Idiot. This is serious. And what I'm going to say is also F serious? Katsuki squeezed Shoto's cheekbones. I am no longer in love with Izuku, I'm in love with the person who is right in front of me. Do you want to let me go? Despite the severe question, Katsuki stares at Shoto with fondness, already knowing Shoto's answer before he can blurt out the words. No. He vehemently answers. And I don't want to let go of you. Katsuki gives him a blinding smile. It's time to go home, Shoto. For years, Shoto has been in numerous homes.
The home he was born in but never felt at home in that environment. The home he got in the UA dorm as he stayed with the classmates he considered family. He went to another barren home after graduation, the home Shoto and Touya built. And at home he placed himself in Katsuki's arms. At first, Shoto thought he might burn from Katsuki's burning starlight. But now he knows if ever Shoto wants to bask in that burn, Katsuki would only provide warmth. Katsuki would never let Shoto be burned. Yeah. Shoto smiles. Home. He helps Shoto stand up, and Katsuki intertwines his fingers with Shoto's. They exited the men's bathroom and walked out of that building. Although Shoto did look back to the building, starting to be embarrassed at the breakdown he showed to his classmates, Katsuki, on the other hand, did not take a glance behind him. He only focused to stare at Shoto's hands and his face. Hey, Katsuki. He swings their hands together as if he's still a child. Katsuki doesn't clearly mind. I love you. The intertwined hands kept 𝗧𝗵𝗲 as they walked to Katsuki's car. I love you too. I love you more. I love you most. 𝗬𝗲𝗧𝗪𝗧. Don't compete with me about this. Shoto barks out a laugh, giddy, and feels loved at the same time. He doesn't know what Katsuki is going to do about the 𝗧𝗵𝗲 situation, but this time, Shoto is not an idiot anymore to create more doubts about the love Katsuki is providing him, especially when Katsuki is clearly staring at him with a burning starlight. Next year, Shoto is definitely going to put a ring on Katsuki's finger. Since love is expensive for someone like Todoroki Shoto. He learned that through heartbreak. But Katsuki Bakugo taught him it's not expensive, not even cheap. It's about giving unconditional support and care. Shoto learned it with ease, not heartache.